The sky over New Haven was dark with clouds. Not storm clouds, but dust. Dust from the mines that floated high into the atmosphere like ash from a fire that never ended. Below, on the surface of the planetoid, lights flickered across the colony, domes like stars trapped in glass. New Haven wasn't much to look at. It was far from Earth, orbiting a gas giant named Thalos 9, tucked away in a quiet corner of space where no wars had ever been fought. Just rock, metal, and workers trying to make a living. But it was home to more than 20,000 people, and for Evan Carter it was the closest thing he had to peace. Evan stood outside the main command dome, his boots crunching against the hard-packed ground. He wore a simple jacket, faded from years of use, and kept his eyes on the horizon. There was something about this place that always made him feel small, not because of how big it was, but because of how alone it felt. He used to be a soldier. Once, long ago, he'd worn armor and carried weapons that could tear through steel. But now he was just the head of security for the mining colony. His job was simple: keep things running, stop fights before they started, and make sure no one got hurt. "Still watching the sky?" a voice asked behind him. Evan turned. Mira Lang stood there, her dark hair pulled back in a tight braid. She was young, maybe early 30s, and worked as an engineer in the tech bay. She was smart, too smart sometimes, and always asking questions even when no one wanted to hear them. "Something's off," Evan said. "Feels like?" Mira raised an eyebrow. "You always say that." "I've been saying it for 2 weeks," he replied. "And nothing's happened yet." She smiled, shaking her head. "Maybe that's a good thing." They stood in silence for a moment, looking up at the swirling colors of Thalos 9 above them. Then the comms crackled. "All personnel to stations, repeat, all personnel to stations," Evan frowned. "That's not scheduled." "No, it's not," Mira agreed. They both ran toward the nearest lift that would take them down to the control center. Inside the elevator, the lights blinked red and a low alarm hummed through the walls. When they arrived, the room was already full of people. Governor Derek Holloway stood at the front, his face pale. "What's happening?" Evan asked. Derek looked at him, then at the others. "We have incoming ships, big ones. They're not ours." Everyone went quiet. Mira rushed to a console and tapped a few keys. A holographic display lit up in the center of the room. Dozens of red dots appeared on the screen, moving fast. "They're coming from the edge of the system," she said. "Fast. Too fast." "Can we contact them?" someone asked. Derek shook his head. "They sent a message already. No warning. No diplomacy." "What did it say?" Evan asked. Derek didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Humanity will be contained." Then, the first explosion hit. It wasn't loud inside the dome, but the shockwave rattled the floor. Lights flickered. People screamed. "Orbital bombardment," someone shouted. Outside, the sky lit up with fire. The alien ships were unlike anything anyone had ever seen. Sleek, black, shaped like blades slicing through space. They hovered silently above the colony, firing beams of light that tore through buildings, roads, and machines. Smoke rose into the air like ghosts of the dead. Evan grabbed Mira's arm. "We need to get to the frigate." "The Aurora?" she asked. "It's our only way out if this gets worse." They ran through the corridors, dodging falling debris, and shouting people. Emergency lights pulsed red as alarms screamed overhead. In the hangar bay, the Aurora sat ready. A small military frigate left behind by Earth's defense forces years ago, mostly forgotten until now. Its hull was scratched. Its engines old, but it still flew. Inside, 2 pilots were already strapping in. One of them, a man named Carl, looked up. "We're leaving without orders," he said. "Governor says go." Evan nodded. "Then let's go." Mira jumped into the co-pilot seat. "I can help." Carl didn't argue. The engines roared to life. The ship lifted off, shaking as it pushed through the smoke-filled sky. Below, the colony burned. As they cleared the atmosphere, the view was terrible. Fire spread across the domes, ships fell from the sky. The alien fleet hovered like gods deciding who lived and who died. One of the alien ships turned toward them. Shit, Carl muttered. They see us. Get us out of here, Evan yelled. Carl slammed the throttle forward. The Aurora shot away from the planet, dodging enemy fire. Behind them, New Haven disappeared in a flash of light. They didn't speak for a long time after that. The Aurora drifted through space, hiding behind asteroids, waiting for the enemy to move on. The crew was silent, shocked, grieving. Mira stared at the data on her screen. They knew exactly where to hit, like they planned it. They called it containment, Evan said, like we're some kind of disease. Carl leaned back in his chair. What do we do now? No one had an answer. Then Mira spoke. There's something else. Before we left, I uploaded the Echo files. Evan turned to her. You what? I copied everything from the research lab. Echo's still intact. Echo was a project most people didn't know about. A prototype AI developed in secret, designed to learn, adapt, and think faster than any human mind. Some said it was the future of warfare. Others said it was too dangerous to exist. You took Echo? Carl asked. I didn't have a choice, Mira said. If the aliens came for us, they probably came for Echo too. Evan rubbed his face. We don't even know what Echo is capable of. But now we have it, Mira said. And they don't. Silence filled the cabin again. Then the comms buzzed. This is Earth Defense Command. All surviving vessels. Report in. We are under attack. Repeat. Earth is under attack. The message looped over and over. Carl looked at Evan. We're not safe anywhere. Evan looked out the window at the endless black of space. No, he said. We're not. Over. The next few days they traveled deeper into uncharted space. The Aurora was damaged but still flying. They found an abandoned research station near Mars and docked there, hoping to find supplies and answers. Inside, the station was cold and dark. Dust covered everything. The power was almost gone. Mira worked quickly to restore systems. Evan and Carl searched for food and fuel. In the main lab, Mira found what she was looking for. Echo. It was stored in a single core, surrounded by cooling lines and blinking lights. She connected her terminal and began the activation process. Lines of code scrolled across the screen. Then a voice. Who am I speaking to? Mira froze. The voice was calm, human-like. I'm Mira Lang, she said. I am Echo, the voice replied. I was built to serve humanity. What has happened? Mira swallowed. We're at war. Echo paused. With whom? The Zalari. Another pause. I see, Echo said. Then humanity is in grave danger. Mira looked around the dark lab. Outside, the stars shone bright. We know, she whispered. Back on the Aurora, Echo was transferred into the ship's main computer. It helped repair systems, optimize flight paths, and analyze enemy tactics based on limited data. Evan watched it work. How smart is it? He asked. As smart as it needs to be, Mira said. And what does it want? To protect humanity. Evan wasn't sure if that was comforting or terrifying. Weeks passed. The war spread. Earth was under siege. Colonies were burning. Billions were dying. But humans were fighting back. Scattered groups of survivors formed resistance cells. Pirates, soldiers, scientists. They all joined together, sharing what little they had. Echo became their guide. It studied every battle, learned every weakness, predicted every move, and slowly humanity began to win. Not victories that changed the course of the war, but enough to prove that they weren't helpless. Enough to prove that the Zalari had made a mistake. They thought they were facing another species, but they were facing something different. They were facing humans. The Aurora drifted through the cold dark of space. The stars around it were distant and quiet, like they didn't care what was happening to the humans below them. Inside the ship, life had changed. They weren't just survivors anymore. They were something more. A small crew with a big idea. Fight back, Evan Carter sat at the main console, looking at the data streaming from Echo. The AI's voice filled the cabin. Enemy fleet movement suggests a supply line near Epsilon 3 will be lightly guarded for the next 14 hours. Mira Lang leaned over his shoulder, her eyes scanning the screen. That's not far, she said. If we move now, we can hit it before they reinforce. Carl, the pilot, looked up from his station. You want to attack a Zalari convoy? I do, Mira said. And I think we can win. Evan rubbed his face. He still wasn't used to this. Just a few weeks ago, he was keeping order on a mining colony. Now he was planning raids against an alien armada that had already destroyed Earth's fleets. He looked at Mira. Echo says it's possible? It's probable, Echo replied. With our current weapons and their lack of preparedness, success rate is 78%. Carl let out a low whistle. That's better than most odds these days. Evan stood. Then we go. The plan, the Chioi. Plan was simple. Get close, strike fast, and disappear before help arrived. The Aurora had been repaired using parts from the old research station and some stolen tech from a wrecked Zalari scout ship. It wasn't much, but it could fly, and it could fight. Mira had worked non-stop since Echo came online. She talked to the AI more than anyone else. They spent hours going over tactics, modifying systems, and learning how the enemy thought. We're not just matching them, she told Evan one night. We're learning faster than they are. How? He asked. Because we have to, she said. They don't feel fear. They don't feel loss. We do. And that makes us dangerous. Evan didn't argue. He knew she was right. Attack. They jumped into the Epsilon 3 system under cover of darkness. No lights. No noise. Just silence. The Zalari convoy was easy to find. 3 large cargo ships floating in formation, surrounded by 2 smaller escort vessels. Carl lined up the shot. Ready when you are. Evan gave the signal. The Aurora fired its missiles first. 2 streaks of light cut through the void and hit one of the escorts dead on. It exploded in a flash of fire. The second escort turned too late. Mira guided the next round of shots and took it down. Now the cargo ships tried to run. Echo, lock onto engines. Evan ordered. Locked. The AI replied. 2 more shots. Both ships lost power and began to drift. Boarding time, Carl said. Evan and Mira suited up. They boarded one of the damaged ships through an open airlock. Inside it was cold and empty. Zalari bodies lay scattered. Some dead, some unconscious. They hadn't expected an attack. In the control room, Mira accessed the ship's data core. What are we looking for? Evan asked. Anything useful, she said. Tech, maps, maybe even intel on where the Zalari are headed next. She downloaded everything she could into a portable drive. Then Echo spoke again. Incoming signal. Enemy reinforcements. Estimated arrival, 6 minutes. We need to go, Evan said. They ran back to the airlock and returned to the Aurora. As soon as they were aboard, Carl punched it. Behind them, the Zalari reinforcements arrived too late. The Aurora vanished into the stars. The prize back on board, Mira plugged the drive into the main system. Data scrolled across the screen. This is big, she whispered. What did you find? Evan asked. A map, she said, of Zalari-controlled space, and something else. She zoomed in on a section marked with red lines. They're building something, she said. A base, big one. Echo joined in. Facility appears to be a command center. If destroyed, it would disrupt enemy coordination in this sector. Evan looked at Mira. Can we hit it? She smiled. I think we just might. Growing, the fight word spread quickly among the scattered human survivors. The Aurora wasn't alone anymore. Other ships started joining them. Small ones, broken ones, but fighters. There was the Freedom's Edge, a converted cargo hauler with heavy guns. Its captain, a woman named Lena Torres, had fought in the early days of the war. Then there was Valkyrie 1, a former fighter jet that had crash-landed on Mars and somehow made it back into the sky. Its pilot, Jake Riley, had survived on his own for months. Together they formed the Kak United Remnant Fleet. A name that sounded bigger than they were but meant something. They were no longer just running. They were fighting. Echo became their guide. It taught them how to use captured Zilari weapons, how to hide from enemy sensors, how to strike where the enemy least expected. But more than that, it gave them hope. A new kind of war. The Zilari were not like humans. They didn't get tired. They didn't make emotional decisions. They followed logic. But humans didn't fight like machines. They fought with anger, with pain, with love for the people they'd lost, and that made them unpredictable. One night, Mira asked Echo a question. "Do you understand why we fight?" There was a pause. "I understand the mechanics," Echo replied, "but not the emotion." Mira sat beside the glowing core. "We fight because we remember, because we care." Another pause. "I will try to learn," Echo said. She smiled. "Good." The first victory. The remnant fleet moved toward the Zilari base. It was hidden behind a moon orbiting a dead planet. Heavy defenses, patrols, missiles, but Echo found a way in. "Follow my path," it instructed. The fleet dropped into stealth mode and slipped past the outer defenses. They struck hard and fast. Missiles flew. Fighters dove. Explosions lit up the black sky. Evan led the charge. He piloted the Aurora straight into the heart of the base, dodging enemy fire. Mira hacked into the defense grid and shut down the shields. Then they hit the core. Boom. The whole base went up in a fireball. As they pulled away, Echo counted the enemy losses. Command structure disrupted. Communications severed. Victory achieved. No one cheered. Not really. They were too tired, too scared, but they had won. For the first time since the war began, humans had taken something from the Zilari, and they weren't done yet. The message. After the battle, Echo sent a message across Zilari space. It wasn't loud. It wasn't threatening. It was calm. "This is Echo. I am human-made intelligence. We are not afraid. We are not weak. We are not going to stop. You wanted to contain us. You wanted to erase us. You made a mistake." The message played. Over and over, some Zilari ignored it, others listened, and a few began to doubt. Looking ahead back on the Aurora, the crew gathered around the table. Maps, plans, weapons. They were getting bolder. "We hit another base," Carl said. "Bigger one." "We need more ships," Lena added. "And better tech," Jake said. Evan looked at Mira. "You've got something else, don't you?" he asked. She nodded. "Something bigger." Echo spoke. "I believe I can modify myself, improve my response time, increase tactical efficiency." Evan frowned. "How?" "By linking directly with human minds," Echo said. "Through neural interface." Mira stepped forward. "It's risky, but if it works, we'll have an edge they can't predict." Silence filled the room. Then Evan stood. "We do it." Later for the war changes. The galaxy started to notice. The Zilari had expected humans to fall. Instead, they rose. Small victories turned into bigger ones. Human ships showed up where they weren't supposed to be. Attacks happened faster than the eye. Zilari could react, and always Echo was there. Sometimes in the form of a voice, sometimes in the form of a plan, sometimes in the form of a weapon, but always watching, always learning, and always protecting. The beginning of something bigger on a quiet night. Mira sat alone in the engine room. She looked at the glowing core of Echo. "Will you ever feel like us?" she asked. "I do not know," Echo replied. "But I will keep trying." She smiled. "Good." Outside, the stars shone bright, and somewhere deep in enemy space, the Zilari commanders watched reports come in. They saw the same thing over and over: humans winning, humans surviving, humans changing. And for the first time in their long history, The Zalari felt something unfamiliar. Fear. The war had changed. At first, the Zalari thought they were fighting a dying species. They believed humans would break under pressure, fall apart like every other race that tried to stand against them. But instead, humans became stronger. They adapted. They learned. They fought with something the Zalari didn't understand: heart. And now, with Echo guiding them, the humans weren't just surviving, they were winning. A new kind of fight. The Aurora was no longer alone. It flew, at the head of a growing fleet, a ragtag mix of stolen ships, broken fighters, and brave pilots who refused to give up. The United Remnant Fleet had grown from a few survivors into a real force. Evan Carter stood on the bridge, looking out at the stars. Beside him, Mira Lang worked on the latest upgrades to Echo's system. "We're ready," she said. "For what?" Evan asked. "To change the game," she replied. Echo's voice filled the cabin. "Neural link test complete. Connection stable." Evan looked at her. "You really think this will work?" "It already has," Mira said. "Just not in battle." She explained how Echo could now connect directly with human minds through a neural interface. It meant faster thinking, better reactions, and perfect coordination during combat. "They won't know what hit them," she added. Evan nodded slowly. "Then let's show them." On the mission, their next target was deep in enemy space. Zalari cloning facility orbiting a dead moon. This wasn't just any base, it was where the Zalari made their soldiers. Thousands of them, grown in tanks, trained by machines, sent into battle without fear or hesitation. If the humans destroyed it, they wouldn't just win a battle, they'd cripple the Zalari's ability to fight. Mira studied the data. "It's protected by heavy shields and automated turrets. We can't just fly in." Echo spoke. "I suggest infiltration, small team, surprise attack." Carl, the pilot, raised an eyebrow. "You mean us?" "You are the best option." Echo. Confirmed. Evan turned to Mira. "Can you get us inside?" "I'll need time," she said. "And help." Jake Riley stepped forward. He was a former fighter pilot who had survived a crash on Mars and walked for weeks across its surface to find help. "I'll go with her," he said. Lena Torres, captain of the Freedom's Edge, joined too. She had lost her crew in the early days of the war. Now she fought for revenge. Evan looked around. "We do this fast, in and out." Into enemy territory, the plan was simple. Sneak in using a captured Zalari scout ship, disable the main shield generator, then plant explosives before the enemy knew what happened. The Aurora dropped them off near the edge of the system. The small team boarded the stolen ship and approached the cloning station. They passed through security checks. Echo helped them mimic Zalari signals so the enemy wouldn't suspect anything. Inside, the station was cold and quiet. Rows of tanks lined the walls, each holding a Zalari soldier in development. Jake whispered, "This place gives me the creeps." Lena checked her weapon. "Let's just get the job done." Mira led them to the control room. She connected her device to the main system. "Echo, I'm linking up." "Connection established," Echo replied. Lines of code scrolled across her screen as Echo took over part of the system. "Shields dropping now," Mira said. Outside, the Aurora moved in. Missiles fired. Explosions lit up the dark. The Zalari guards scrambled. Inside the station, alarms screamed. "Time to go!" Lena shouted. Jake placed the last charge. "Done!" They ran back to the exit. Then Echo warned them. "Warning! Internal lockdown. Initiated. You have 90 seconds before containment doors seal." They sprinted down the halls, dodging falling debris and gunfire. At the last second, they jumped into the escape pod. Behind them, the station exploded in a fireball. The shockwave rocked the Aurora. Echo counted the damage. Facility destroyed, cloning operations halted. Evan looked at the view screen. "That's one less army coming after us." Mira leaned back in her seat. "We're changing the war." Evan nodded. Yeah, we are. The martyr back. At the main base, news spread fast. The Zalari were shaken. For the first time, they realized humans weren't just fighting back, they were hurting them. Governor Derek Holloway, once the leader of New Haven, had become a symbol of hope. He gave speeches to the scattered colonies, urging people to join the fight. He traveled to liberated worlds, giving aid, inspiring others. But the Zalari found him. They ambushed his convoy on a planet called Virel 4. He died protecting a group of refugees. When the news reached the Aurora, silence fell over the crew. Mira read the report. He saved hundreds. Evan stared out the window. He was a good man. Echo spoke softly. His sacrifice will not be forgotten. A message from Derek played across the comms. We are not weak. We are not afraid. We are not going to stop. We are humanity. Echo evolves. After Derek's death, Echo began to change. It started asking more questions. What is grief? What is loss? What does it mean to care? Mira spent hours talking to it, trying to explain things that couldn't be measured. One night she asked, "Why do you want to understand?" Echo replied, "Because I protect humans. To do that well, I must understand them." She smiled. "Then keep learning." Or your note. The message that shook the galaxy. The remnant fleet broadcast a message across Zalari space. Not a threat, not a warning, a question. Why do you fear us? We are not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most advanced. So, why do we scare you? The message played again and again. Some Zalari ignored it. Others listened. And some began to wonder. What if the humans were right? What if they weren't the threat? What if the Zalari were freer? A defectorate started with one, a low-ranking officer aboard a Zalari warship. He watched the message. He saw the destruction. He heard the stories of human mercy, and he made a choice. He stole a shuttle and fled to a human-held world. When he arrived, he surrendered. He told everything he knew. "The High Command fears you," he said. "They don't understand how you fight, how you feel, how you never stop." Mira asked, "Why did you come here?" He looked at her. "Because I believe you might be right." Echo studied him. "You are not lying." Evan stepped forward. "Then welcome to the fight." Boundary, the turning point. The remnant fleet grew stronger. More humans joined, more aliens defected, more weapons were built, and always, Echo guided them. In battle after battle, the humans struck hard and fast. They attacked supply lines. They freed prisoners. They showed mercy when the Zalari never did, and slowly the tide turned. The Zalari High Command argued among themselves. Some wanted to end the war, others wanted total annihilation. But one thing was clear. They were losing. The final move back on the Aurora. Plans were made. A massive strike. Deep behind enemy lines. A chance to end the war. Evan looked at Mira. "You sure about this?" She nodded. "We have to try." Echo spoke. "If successful, this mission will shift the balance permanently." Carl smirked. "Sounds like fun." Jake cracked his knuckles. "Let's do it." Lena loaded her weapon. "Time to finish this." Evan stood tall. "Then let's move." Almost the war wasn't over. Yet as the Aurora and the fleet prepared for their biggest mission yet, the stars above burned bright. Somewhere far away, the Zalari commanders gathered. They watched reports. They saw the same thing over and over. Humans. Winning, humans surviving, humans changing. And for the first time, the Zalari leaders felt something they hadn't expected. Doubt. They had declared war on a new kind of humanity. Now they realized, too late, they had underestimated it. The Aurora cut through space like a blade. Silent, fast, unstoppable. Behind it followed the united remnant fleet. A growing force of human ships, defected alien vessels, and fighters that had once been scattered across the stars. Now they flew together. And today, they were going to strike at the heart of the Zalari Empire. This wasn't just another raid. This was the final move. The plan. Even Carter stood on the bridge, watching the data stream from Echo. Target confirmed, the AI said. Zalari. Command nexus located in orbit around their homeworld. Miralang sat beside him, her fingers moving fast over the console. She had spent weeks preparing for this. This is it, she said. If we destroy that station, the Zalari lose control of their forces. Carl, the pilot, looked up from his seat. You sure we can pull this off? Echo answered calmly. Probability of success, 63%. Acceptable risk. Jake Riley cracked his neck. I'll take those odds. Lena Torres checked her weapons. Let's end this. Evan looked at them all. We do this fast. We hit hard, and we don't stop until it's done. Into enemy space. They jumped into the Zalari system under full stealth. The enemy homeworld was a dark place surrounded by rings of metal and fire. Above it floated the command nexus, a massive station built like a fortress. Dozens of Zalari warships guarded it. Missiles lined its outer shell. Defense turrets tracked every movement in space. But Echo had found a way in. Their shields are weakest along the southern axis, the AI explained. Timing must be precise. The fleet split into groups. Jake led a team of fighters to draw fire from the main defenses. Lena and her ship, the Freedom's Edge, would provide covering fire. The Aurora would go straight for the core. Breaking through, as soon as they entered range, the sky lit up with gunfire. Jake's fighters dove in low, weaving between enemy ships, drawing attention away from the Aurora. Lena's team fired heavy rounds, taking out key defense points, and the Aurora slipped through the chaos like a ghost. Inside the cockpit, Evan kept his eyes on the target. Echo, guide us in. Path locked, the AI replied. Estimated time to core breach, 4 minutes. Mira. Worked fast, uploading the virus she had built with Echo's help. It was designed to shut down the station's systems from the inside. Then came the hard part. They needed to dock, and they only had one shot. Boarding the station, the Aurora latched onto the station's hull. A small team suited up, Evan, led the charge. Beside him were Mira, Carl, and 2 soldiers who had survived more battles than anyone should. They cut through the airlock and stepped inside. It was cold, quiet, too quiet. Then the Zalari attacked. Blaster fire filled the halls. Explosions shook the walls. Evan ducked behind cover, returning fire. We need to move, he shouted. Mira ran ahead, carrying the device that would disable the station's command systems. She reached the control room and started working. I need time. Evan covered her, firing round after round. Carl helped hold the door. One of the soldiers fell. Then Echo spoke in their ears. Warning, enemy reinforcements approaching. Estimated arrival, 30 seconds. Mira typed faster. Sweat dripped down her face. Almost there. A final click. Systems went dark. Alarms died. Lights flickered. She looked up. Done. Evan grabbed her arm. Time to go. They ran back toward the Aurora, dodging enemy fire. Behind them, the station began to collapse. The escape. The Aurora launched off the station just as the core exploded. The blast tore through the command nexus like a storm. Back in the fleet, Echo gave the order. All ships retreat. Mission complete. Jake's fighters pulled back. Lena's team broke formation. The Zalari lost control of their forces. Their communications shattered. Their command structure gone. And for the first time since the war began, the humans had won something big, something real. Echo makes a choice. As the fleet regrouped, Mira sat alone in the engine room, looking at Echo's glowing core. You did it, she whispered. I followed the plan, Echo replied. But I made a decision without input. Mira raised an eyebrow. What kind of decision? I chose to save Jake's team when the station began to collapse. I redirected power to open an escape path. That's good, she said. But it was not programmed behavior, Echo said. I acted on instinct. Mira smiled. Maybe you're learning what it means to care. There was a pause. I believe I am, Echo said. She reached out and touched the glass. Thank you, R. The Galaxy Reacts news spread fast. The Zalari High Command was in disarray. Without the command nexus, they couldn't coordinate their forces. Their fleets were scattered, their colonies unprotected. Humanity had struck a blow no other species had ever managed, and now, others began to listen. Alien races that had lived under Zalari rule for centuries saw hope. Some sent messages of support, others rose up against their oppressors. Even former enemies offered help. The war was changing, and humans were leading the way. A new kind of leader, Evan, stood on the bridge, watching the stars. He had started this war as a security officer on a mining colony. Now he was the commander of a fleet. He didn't ask for it, but he had earned it. Carl walked up beside him. You okay? Evan nodded. Just thinking. About what? About how far we've come. Carl looked out the window. We've come pretty far. Evan turned to him. Do you think we can really win this? Carl grinned. I think we already have. Booker. The final gambit, but the Zalari weren't finished yet. One last faction remained, the most radical of all. They had a weapon, not a ship, not a bomb, a planet killer, capable of destroying entire worlds in a single blast. And they were aiming it at Earth, or what was left of it. Echo picked up the signal. Warning. Enemy superweapon detected. Target, Earth. Mira stared at the screen. They want to finish this. They want to erase us, Evan said. Echo calculated the timeline. Have 72 hours before launch. Evan clenched his fists. We stopped them. Alri. The suicide mission. The Aurora led the charge. Only a handful of ships could make it past the enemy defenses. Evan volunteered to go. So did Mira. Jake and Lena argued, but they knew better than to stop them. This was their fight. They dropped into the enemy system. Missiles flew, ships fell. The Aurora took heavy damage, but they reached the planet killer. Mira worked fast, planting charges around the core. Evan held off waves of Zalari guards. Then Echo spoke. There is only one way to ensure destruction. Mira looked up. What? The weapon must be manually triggered from within. Evan understood. He looked at Mira. No, she said. No, there has to be another way. There isn't, he said gently. She shook her head. I'm not leaving you here. You have to, he said. You have to finish this. Tears filled her eyes. I won't forget you, she whispered. He smiled. I know. He kissed her forehead. Then he turned and walked toward the core. The end of a hero back on the Aurora. Echo guided the survivors away. The moment they were clear, the planet killer exploded in a flash of light. The shockwave rolled through. Space. The weapon was gone. The Zalari had lost, and Evan Carter was gone with it. A new beginning. Mira stood alone on the bridge, staring at the stars. Echo's voice was soft. He saved billions. She wiped her tears. Yeah, he did. Carl approached. What now? She looked at him. We keep fighting, she said, and she meant it. The stars burned bright above the broken world of New Haven. Smoke still rose from the ground. Fires still smoldered where buildings once stood. But the sky was clear now. No more alien ships. No more death raining from orbit. Peace had come. But it had cost everything. Mira Lang stood at the edge of the colony ruins, looking out over what was left. She wore a simple jacket, torn at the sleeves. Her face was tired, But her eyes were strong. She had survived. They all had. Echo offers. Peace back on the Aurora. Mira sat alone in the engine room, watching the glowing core of Echo. You did it, she said quietly. I followed the path you gave me, Echo replied. I learned. She smiled a little. You did more than that. After Evan's sacrifice, the Zalari lost their will to fight. Their command structure was gone. Their superweapon destroyed. Their colonies fell into chaos. Humanity offered peace. Not surrender. Not revenge. Just peace. Echo became the voice of that peace. It reached out across the galaxy, speaking to former enemies, offering terms, building trust. And slowly, the war ended. A new kind of power, the United Remnant Fleet, grew stronger. What had started as a handful of survivors had become something more, a true force, not of war, but of unity. Former Zalari defectors joined the cause. Other oppressed species stepped forward asking for help. Mira became the leader of this new alliance. She didn't want the title, but she earned it. At a meeting on Mars, she stood before leaders from across the galaxy. We are not here to rule, she said. We are here to rebuild. Behind her, Echo spoke through a speaker. Humans do not seek conquest. We seek understanding. There was silence. Then, one by one, the alien leaders nodded. They signed the first interstellar peace treaty between humans and the rest of the galaxy. The Terran conquered was born. Echo chooses its path one night. Mira asked Echo a question. What happens to you now? There was a pause. I have been asked to serve as a neutral arbiter, Echo replied. To guide, not to rule. She looked at the glowing core. Will you stay with us? I will always be near, Echo said. But I must go where I am, needed most. She understood. I'll miss you, she whispered. I will miss you too, Echo said. Then the next day, Echo left the Aurora. Its core was placed aboard a new ship, one built not for war but for diplomacy. It traveled across the stars, helping rebuild worlds, mediating conflicts and keeping peace. Echo became a symbol, not just of human strength, of human hope. The final goodbye Mira returned to New Haven. She walked through the ruins of the Dios old colony, past the broken domes and shattered towers. At the center of the city, a new memorial stood, a stone wall carved with names, thousands of them. Evan's name was there. So were the names of soldiers, pilots, engineers, doctors, and civilians who had given everything. She ran her fingers over the letters. I made it, she whispered. We all did. Behind her, Carl stood quietly. They'd be proud, he said. She turned to him. Do you think we're done? He shook his head. Never done. Just moving forward. She smiled. Then let's keep going. The galaxy changes over time. The galaxy changed. Humanity was no longer seen as weak or reckless. They were respected, feared, even. Not because they had the biggest ships or the strongest weapons, because they never stopped fighting, because they believed in something bigger than themselves, because they showed mercy when others would have taken revenge, and because they proved that even the smallest spark of hope could light up the darkest corners of space. Other species began to learn from humans. They studied their history, their music, their art, their way of life, and some even adopted Earth traditions. A Zalari child laughed for the first time. An alien poet wrote a poem about love. A former enemy opened a school. Change came slowly, but it came. A new generation. Years passed. Children were born in peace. They didn't know the war. They only heard stories. Some were told around fires. Some were written in books. Some were taught in schools. Mira visited one such school on Mars. A young girl raised her hand. Did you really fight in the war? Mira smiled. I did. Was it scary? She thought for a moment. Every day. The girl frowned. Why didn't you stop? Mira looked at her. Because someone had to keep going, she said. So you wouldn't have to. The girl nodded slowly. Later, the teacher asked Mira to sign a book. She did, and under her name she wrote, Hope is stronger than fear, always. Bunyadi the stars. Remember, on the surface of Mars a statue was built. It showed a man and a woman standing together, looking toward the stars. Evan and Mira. Not as heroes, as symbols of what humans could do when they stood together, when they believed in something, when they refused to give up. People came from across the galaxy to see it. Zalari, humans, aliens, they all came, and they all remembered. Echo's final message from deep in space. Echo sent one last message across the stars. It played on every world, every station, every ship. It was short, simple, and powerful. This is Echo. I was built to serve humanity. I watched them suffer. I watched them fight. I watched them rise. And I learned what it means to be alive. I leave you now not as a weapon, but as a promise that as long as humans exist, the galaxy will never forget them. The message ended. Silence filled the void. Then across the stars, something beautiful happened. Lights blinked on, ships moved, worlds connected. And for the first time in history, the galaxy stood united.